This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome. This is the Heroes Podcast, and who I have here today from Spain is Sarah Dawkins. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Andre. How are you?
Well, thanks for coming. You got a typical Spanish accent, right?
Absolutely. Why would I not?
So what I'll do, I'll just intro you to everyone so they know who we are meeting here today, and then off we go with your story. So Sarah is an amazing human being. She has been a former registered nurse with over 20 years of medical experience. Sarah brings a unique integrative perspective to her work. She's highly sought after holistic health and healing coach, keynote speaker, and the author of Heal Yourself. She's also a multi-award winner, entrepreneur, and host of the popular health-focused podcast, Heal Yourself, with Sarah Dawkins. Welcome on the show. I'm so excited to have you. Do you want to take us back to the beginning, if you had struggles and troubles around health and healing?
Sure. I mean, my whole life's been struggles and troubles, so I won't take you right back to the beginning. But around 2010 was where my struggles really compounded. So I had started my own natural self-healing journey after somebody challenged me about using pharmaceuticals at home, which challenged my belief system, made me become aware, conscious of what I was believing. So I started doing some research. I'd started healing several conditions in my own body and was becoming conflicted with my role as a nurse, because here I was at home, no longer using pharmaceuticals, looking at the power of my mind, my body, its natural innate healing abilities. And then I was going to work, following doctor's orders and giving medications and running through that medical model. So there was a real battle going on there. And I actually ended up spiraling down into a dark depression with suicidal thoughts. My thyroid gland stopped working and I burned out my adrenal glands and dropped my blood pressure incredibly low. And during those dark times, I stayed at home. I often forgot to eat and drink during the day whilst my children were out at school and my husband was out at work. My days were just so dark. I don't know what I did other than walk the dogs because I had to. And when they came home, that was my cue, my subconscious cue to start cooking a meal, start making a drink. And I was really struggling to just function through those times. And those dark times lasted 3 years, although the severity lessened over time. And I was in a really, really awful place. And I thought of many different ways to end my life because I thought I'm making everybody's life a misery. But I was a coward. And also, I didn't want to feel anything and hurt myself, but I also didn't want to hurt others. So I couldn't jump off a bridge in case a motorist ran me over. I didn't want to run in front of a train. I didn't want to cut my wrists because there'd be mess everywhere for my family to clean up. So I was looking at all these different ways to end my life. But actually, I just wanted the suffering to stop. I didn't really, truly want to end my life. I wanted that suffering to stop. And I just didn't know what to do or how to do it. And my doctor wanted to medicate me because I was in such a state. But having come so far on my healing journey, I knew that's what I didn't want. But I had no idea what I was going to do because I don't know if anybody that's been depressed, like the frontal lobe, the thinking part of the brain shuts down and it's like wading through a treacle. And I remember one day having a conversation with my husband and I couldn't find the word chair, just a simple word. And I'm like, what is that called? He's like, chair. I'm like, yeah. And that was part of our conversation that sticks with me in my mind because how do you forget a word like chair? And so I went through some really struggling times in those 3 years.
And I'm wondering what what has got you out of that dark place of what I've heard from your stories, that you didn't even have the self to kill yourself. I'm not. It's not funny.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Couldn't do it. Wanted to do it. Thought of many different ways. Didn't want to suffer, so paracetamol overdose was out of the window. Didn't want to make a mess. Didn't want to cause any harm to any other people passing by. And it's just like, what do I do that doesn't hurt me but will, help me? And it was such a struggle. But I think because we had the dogs, I had to take them out every day, 2 walks a day. And that getting outside and walking in green space, because we didn't live in a town, we lived out in the country. So that walking, that fresh air, having to go outside every day over time really helped to lift my spirits. And I remember one day walking the dogs and suddenly like, oh, the trees are all in bud and the leaves are growing. And I'd never noticed anything before. I'd been months and months and months and just like head down, got to walk the dogs, got to do the business, got to go home. And there was no real thought behind it. So this day I'm noticing. So I started looking up to the sky, looking for a bit of blue because, we lived in the UK at the time and there was a lot of grey sky. And they're like, oh, there's a bit of blue sky, just a little bit. Look for flowers. And looking back over my journey, I actually realized I was becoming mindful and practicing gratitude. But at the time, I had no idea. It's like I innately knew I needed to do these things as part of my own healing journey. But I didn't know what I was doing. I was just looking for things to make me smile a little bit, really. So once I started doing more of that, I did more of that. It was like a snowball effect. And then my front brain started to come online a bit more and I was able to function and think a little better. So I started to meditate. And initially it was just like 5 minutes of peace. I'd just find somebody's voice that I liked on the internet, just listen, to find that peace inside me for 5 minutes. And then slowly it got longer and longer. And as I started to feel a little bit better, I started to look to my future. What can I do for my future self? What do I want to do? But my being was tied to my job as a nurse. That's all I ever wanted to be, was a nurse. And I'm like, well, who am I if I'm not a nurse? And I couldn't answer that question for a long time. So I decided my husband said, why don't you become an entrepreneur, set your own business up? So I went to some classes at university to know how to even do that. Set up my first business, but I was a nurse entrepreneur. So I was still tied to that nurse and the roles I did, some DNA work, some medical legal work. I did a bit of agency work in the hospital, but not too much. And I was writing for medical journals. And so I was doing all those roles, but they were all tied to me being a nurse. I had to still maintain my registration to do those jobs. And it helped me to feel better about myself and not having to give medications out in the hospital. But I was still that nurse. I was still tied to that persona. I didn't know who I was truly and authentically until I decided to start looking at how I've healed, what have I done, and how I can help others to do the same, because it was new to me. My whole life was in the medical model. That's how I was raised. And suddenly I'm like, there's all these opportunities to heal. So I wanted to shout it out to the world. And I thought I need to tell the world one way or another that this is going to happen. This can happen. This can happen to anybody. So I went and trained as a coach. Didn't even know anything about coaching until I was further down that healing journey. And that's really when it pulled it all together. And I truly understood healing then, because the teacher was very spiritual and took us on an internal body wisdom meditation to find a trauma and heal it. I'm like, wow, that's it. That's the final piece to the jigsaw. There's so much to healing that never saw before, because my belief in nursing was, when you're sick, you go to the doctor, you get a pill and you're better.
Wow, that's powerful. That
Yeah.
model still stands. I still see a lot of people go back to that white coat and try the next medicine, or even worse, I see that they started to test you out, which combination works. I remember my grandma, she counted 13 a few years before she died. And she knew every story, why she needs to take that pink one, the yellow one, that green one, and the white round. I still don't believe there's so much medication is needed, but I'm wondering how was this loss of identity, because that's what it was. Like, you literally had to give yourself up and recreate a new version of you.
I did.
How difficult was that to own being a coach as opposed to the old nurse identity?
It was incredibly difficult because I did my training as a coach, but I still maintained my nursing registration because I was tied to that identity. So even though I'd trained as a coach and was starting having clients, I was still tied to, I'm a nurse as well, because nurses care for people. And I hadn't fully understood the power that I had to help people as a coach. I knew it's what I wanted to do, but I didn't understand how to do it, and how to do it for their benefit, to not hurt them, because we have to ask some awkward questions. So during the first early stages of being a coach, it was really challenging to ask questions outside of the medical model, but in my mind I'm still kind of Sarah the nurse, but now I'm Sarah the nurse coach. So it's like tagging it all together, and that took me to some really deep inner work on who am I really outside of being Sarah the nurse. And I had to go back to my childhood. Who was I as a child? What did I like? Because I grew up as a people pleaser. It's like, I need to make people happy. So I need to mold and shape who I am to become who they want me to be. So I totally lost my own identity in being a people pleaser and trying to work around other people. So that was a whole learning curve for me to find out who I was authentically underneath who other people wanted me to be. And once I started aligning with coaching, my family thought I was crazy because they're still in that medical model. And like, I've stepped out of it. And they just couldn't understand it at all. Healing from the root cause, they just don't align with that. They can't get their head around that. It's like, well, just take a pill. No.
Well, I'm so glad and I'm so stoked that you have taken, I believe the coaching market and training is very diluted.
Yeah.
There are different, let's say, models of coaching, and I do deep work as well. I understand you do deep transformational work, dealing with the root cause, and I believe you are now a gift to the world, because unfortunately there are a lot of coaches who have a list of questions to ask, which is not necessarily deep work. I think it's always finding that root, the trauma, whatever was causing it, whether it's a past generation of life, it's whatever is coming back from that unconscious mind is the way of changing it forever or healing. And what is specific about, probably you have done a few courses, I'm not too sure, but I understand that coaching and working with that mindset and the emotional part is actually the healing journey. But maybe I have a limited knowledge. But what would you say, what's your method? Like, how do you take on a conversation when someone is reaching out to you?
So I just have a gentle, compassionate conversation and ask them to tell me about their life from their own perspective, what they want to tell me. And I just sit and listen, because often healing happens when people feel listened to. So just allowing them to outpour their life story in their own words, in whatever way they want to tell it, from whenever they want to tell it, helps them enormously. So I just listen and listen until they stop talking. And then quite often things have raised red flags in my mind, that words they've said or terms they've used or the way they've described something. So I'll just ask them for more clarity, take them back to that situation. What was really going on then? What happened? How did you feel? Who was involved? And the traumas that we hold through the eyes of the child that we were at that time. So if we can look back now through the eyes of the adult we are now, with the skills and the knowledge that we've got, but also with compassion and unconditional love for the people involved, because as the saying goes, hurt people hurt people. And, what did the people who hurt us go through to do whatever they did and said to us? And quite often parents say it to their children. They can say awkward things, but not in a harsh way, in a way to make the child think, well, maybe I need to do better, maybe I can do better, maybe I should do things differently. And it's just the skills and knowledge that the parents had at the time. But now we're at a time where we can understand how those words land and sit with that child, and how, as that child grows up, they berate themselves. That little voice in their head is theirs, but the words aren't theirs. The words are from their younger years, from their caregivers, from their schools. And we tend to use those same words to berate ourselves. So if we can understand from a compassionate place in our heart that they said that not to hurt us, but to try and help us. It was their way, their only way of knowing how to help us. And once we can understand that there was never harm meant, it helps us to be able to let go and forgive them for the harm we've had and we've been caused, but that they never intended.
Absolutely. Very insightful. Can I have a silly question?
Please.
You allow them to speak. I was in my mind's eye, I saw this person who doesn't want to shut up, because there's a few of them, right? What would you do then? Would you just gently remind them that, hey, you've come to talk rather than the monologue?
No, I just allow them to speak, because, as I say, sometimes the feeling of being heard is healing in and of itself. And sometimes that they just need to offload. They've carried all of that around with them for their life, and nobody's really listened to them. And now you're there attentively listening. They just need to get it off their chest. And I've never, touch wood, had anybody who just talked for the whole hour without letting me in.
I love that. Probably you are attracting the right people. I am careful. I want to maybe just give a cue to someone who's listening to us. Like, in the beginning of the calls, I asked for permission to interrupt the person if that would happen. It didn't happen maybe a dozen times in the last 5 or 6 years, but at least then I had permission to.
Absolutely. And that's so important, because if we don't ask for permission, they can feel that we're trying to shut them down, or that we're not validating them, or we're not even listening to them.
So how could we, if someone is excited about the healing journey with you, or basically their own healing journey with your help, is there any information, or where do they find you? How could they engage?
if they go to my website, www.sarahdawkins.com, SARAHDAWKINS.com, my emails are there, all my socials, contact, my podcast, my books, everything's all on my website.
That's amazing. And what would you say to someone who is, those people who are going from doctors to doctors, and they have been in a loop of, well, doing the circles, yet not finding cure. And I have a few people around me too, and they slowly put together the puzzle that doctors won't fix it. What would you tell them? Do you have a few advices for them?
I like to gently remind people that we co-create our reality. And that's harsh for some people to understand. But it can be worked around and looked at. What are we benefiting from our symptoms? How are they serving us? Because the depression that I went through, if you break it down, depression, deep restion, I needed that deep rest from work. So I went into that depression. And it was the best thing that happened to me, because it totally changed my life trajectory and life path. But how are your symptoms serving you? What are the benefits? And sometimes it's that you feel love from other people that maybe you've missed out on. You feel that maybe people will help you more because you're sick and you didn't have that as a child. Maybe their symptoms are telling you to take a break because you're working too hard, you're doing too much, you're too stressed. So if we can look at the message behind the symptoms and decode that, and then look at why did we need those symptoms? What are they trying to tell us? Because they're not things to be got rid of with a pill. They're things to be understood. So if we can understand that root cause of why our body is manifesting these symptoms, we can understand the message behind the symptoms, what our body is actually saying. It's speaking to us through our symptoms. And that's the key to healing, is to understand why you need to have this diagnosis of a disease or this rash or this autoimmune or this allergy. There's something behind it. What is that message, and how are you benefiting from that symptom, that diagnosis?
Well, I believe that's wonderful. Pull that veil so they see something they've not realized before.
Yeah.
What would you be celebrating if things went really well for you in the next 5 years? What would you be celebrating?
I'll be celebrating a TED Talk.
Ooh.
Yes. And my friend who told me I would write a book turned out right, and I wrote a book. She went on to tell me I need a podcast. And recently she's told me I will be on television in America. So I'm just going to put that out and allow. Thank you very much. I don't know how, the details, when, where, nothing. So I'm going to celebrate that too.
Who knows? I'm in a mentoring group who are putting speakers on university stages in the US. So we'll have a little chat about that. But going back to this topic of healing, what else would you want to share that I may have not asked you?
I think a lot of people suffer from stress, in inverted commas, stress. And stress is a killer. It can cause heart attacks and strokes through raised blood pressure because of how we feel when we're under stress. But actually, if we break that down and look at it, what is causing us stress? And more often than not, it's us trying to control somebody or something. And we can control neither. we can only control ourselves. Everything else is out of our control and our responsibility, unless it's a little child. But even then, we can't control them. They're going to be who they're going to be. And when we can understand that we're trying to be responsible and control something or someone, and that situation is causing us stress, we can look at how we can reframe that and look at it through new eyes, through a different perspective, and look at, why is this triggering me? Why is it making me stressed? And what can I do about it? And quite often, there's not a lot we can do about it other than kick back and go, well, I can't control it, so I just have to let it be and surrender to it. And that can be challenging for some people because they want to control and manipulate, but not manipulate in a bad way, but manipulate for the good in trying to do something on their own life path rather than just let go and surrender.
No, I love that. I usually trigger some people who might not be ready when I say stress is not accepting what is.
It is. It is. Yeah. Because we're trying to control something. And we have no responsibility and control over it.
Wow. We got still a lot of work to do, I guess, to heal people and hanging on to, and the resistance too.
Yes.
When they have these things should be this way or that way. And I've seen recently, and it's an ongoing journey, when even people trying to judge, I have to say, when one needs to die or stop them from dying. Now that's really way above their control or even any type of really outside of their awareness. And I mean, and there's a big plan anyway.
Yeah.
But they're trying to step into the divine. Like how does that even occur to them, to thinking that they know what's going on?
Yeah. But also to give that responsibility to the doctor or the hospital to don't let my family member die until they're 102. We can't intercept that. We've all got a number on our back, and it will be what it will be, but it will become what we make it.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you, who is a good connection for you? If some people are listening to this call, who is the ideal person where you could expand your message, your brand?
People that are sick and tired of being sick and tired. So is anybody that feels failed by the medical system, that wants to take back the responsibility of their health, that has lost their joy and wants to regain it. And as well as people who want to be proactive in their health and not become sick. I don't just work with people who've got diagnoses. I work with people who are healthy and want to stay healthy. So it's about understanding their own mindset and their own wants and desires. But I only work with people who really want to get well and don't want to be sick.
I think that's a requisite to make any change. And what are your current goals? Like if I ask you about maybe 12 to 24 months, what's driving you?
My passion for helping people to help themselves. I just want to help as many people as possible to understand that the power is within them. That, yes, I'm a healer, but I don't heal them. They heal themselves because they're also a healer. And we heal ourselves. So my passion is to reach as many people as possible, to share the message, to awaken their inner healer up, their innate healer. It's in their body. It's just been quietened and hushed and pushed down. That So if I can help these people to understand that they've got that ability within them and support them to understand how to support their body to heal more efficiently, that is my biggest wish.
That's powerful. Well, I'm glad that you came to have this wonderful and deep conversation. Have you got any last golden nuggets to people who are seeking health, who are seeking healing, who are seeking, well, again, having energy and life in them? What would you tell them?
You are what you believe you are. So if you believe you can heal, you will heal. But if you believe you need a doctor and a pill, you will stay in that medical system, because pills don't heal us. Some pills can support our bodies, but at the end of the day, it's our bodies that heal themselves. So your beliefs really matter.
That's powerful. Sarah, thank you very much for your time. And I'm looking forward to talk again and record some inspiration for millions of people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andre.